What's going on, guys? So today I want to talk briefly about a rare knife steel, and that would be 14-4 CRMO. Most people know it just as 14-4, and I say rare knife steel just because it's currently not very used at all. I only know of two companies off the top of my head that have ever produced knives with this steel. One being Canal Street, which they make some really nice slip joints. And the other, the more known company, Microtech. All right, but not current Microtechs, at least off the top of my head, I can't think of any. Back in the day, Microtechs. All right, so this is a, I don't know, vintage Microtech, I guess you could say. This one happens to be a UDT. And the reason I'm making this video is because I had someone send a message to me just asking, like, hey, I saw this knife. They didn't mention what knife it was, but they said it was 14-4 CRMO. I have no idea what that is. Is that a Chinese steel? Is that like 8CR13 MOV? And I said, no, absolutely not. But if you're, even if you're not new to knives, it's been around for a couple of years, this knife steel hasn't been, super prevalent in the industry, at least from what I've seen, in a while. So seeing these Chinese steels, 8CR13 MOV, different variants of that, when you look at the 14-4 CRMO, which I'll zoom in here, you might think that, it's a safe assumption, but that's what it is, just an assumption. All right, this is a steel of yesteryear. There we go, 14-4 CRMO. So, if you saw this on this Microtech, most people, not all, but most people would just automatically assume this is probably a fake Microtech, it's some Chinese steel and it's just a counterfeit, right? But that would be wrong. This one happens to be an older one. You can see on the blade, this was produced in December 2001. All right, and this blade steel was often used by Microtech when they could not get any 154 CM, which is also very popular at the time and a steel that they commonly used. So what is 14-4 CRMO? It is a steel made by Latrobe, which is the company that produces that. And it is basically a copy of 154 CM. Now, I mentioned this before, but 154 CM and ATS-34, which is also, ATS-34 is more of a steel of yesteryear. Again, don't see a whole lot of people using it. But, when I got into knives, it was extremely common in higher-end knives from late 90s, early 2000s and such. Now, ATS-34 is also 154 CM. So 14-4 or 14-4 CRMO is 154 CM, which is also ATS-34. All three of those steels are pretty much identical. Now, the 14-4 is literally identical to 154 CM. The ATS-34, I think if you look at the actual breakdown, and there's different websites that have, steel information, what elements they make up, the percentages of chromium, vanadium, and carbon, and all that kind of stuff. And I think ATS-34 is literally like 1% or 0.1% off on one of those elements. But it's close enough that people just say it's the same. However, 154 CM is literally identical to 14-4. So to sum it up, all three of those steels are the same. They're just made by three completely different companies. All right, 14-4 is made by Latrobe. 154 CM is made by Crucible. And ATS-34 is made over in Japan by Hitachi. All right, but they are the same. They all have the same performance. All right, so if you happen to ever see an old knife, if you're doing some trading or something, and it has that 14-4 CRMO, I would just consider it to be 154 CM. From my understanding, Microtech, when they were producing their knives, there was certain spurts of time where Crucible didn't have enough 154. They just literally sold out too fast because it was very popular, and it wasn't available, so Microtech went over to Latrobe and got this steel instead as a replacement because it was the same stuff, same performance and everything else. Also, just as an aside, if you know some older knives, Latrobe also was the maker of BG42, which is a very good steel. And that one was what was originally on the Chris Reeves Sebenza knives. All right, so if you see a really old Sebenza, it would have BG42 on it or used in it, which is just pretty interesting. Just a random note there on steels. But yeah, I just want to do a quick video. The person had asked me about it. I just so happened to have a knife that sports that steel, which I don't normally do. It just happened to be coincidence. But yeah, this one is in my automatic knife collection. just because it's a cool knife. I mean, I love the Microtech UDT. I had an LUDT recently, but that one was traded off, or no, I think that one was sold actually. And soon after, I traded and got this one in return, so I can get a Microtech or one of these style Microtechs back in the collection. But yeah, just want to do kind of a quick video. There's not a whole lot else to talk about there. You know, it's the same. It's just, it's sometimes a little confusing in the steel world. You know, I know a lot of people are into knives. They want to see me do videos and series on different blade steels. I may do that. It's time consuming, more so than the other stuff I do. When winter time comes, I might do more of that just because I have more free time. You're stuck in the house and there's a snowstorm or something. You know, maybe I'll be more in the mood to do technical type videos. But yeah, I mean, if you're new to the knife world, things could be confusing in that sense, where you have three completely different knife steels, all identical performance, just because they're made by different people, you know? And that happens quite often, where you'll see, you know, one steel here and a similar version, but people just don't know it. They have totally different names, and the whole thing can be kind of confusing. It's a lot of, you know, jumbled letters and numbers, and it doesn't mean much to people who aren't super into knives, but I would say a lot of people who get into knives as a hobby, not just buying one and carrying one, but all of a sudden you're buying, you know, a dozen of them, you're buying higher end knives. That's when you start learning about steel choices and preferences and all that kind of stuff. And of course, when people are talking about it, you know, it becomes interesting, and then you start searching it and learning about it. But just want to throw this video out there just for the off chance you happen to get a vintage knife, because again, I don't know offhand other companies. In fact, you guys can maybe school me, let me know what current companies are currently using 14.4 as a steel choice. But I personally just haven't seen it in many years. But it's an interesting, just kind of random thing about knife steels. So if you're into knives, hopefully this video was fascinating to you. If I do come across some rare steels in the future, I will certainly, you know, make more videos like this about it, just kind of talking briefly about what it might be comparable to, just for the people who don't know. Because I can definitely say that in today's day and age, with a lot of different counterfeits and knockoffs and stuff, it might be easy for someone to see this, you know, and assume it's a fake. Looking at this steel, never, you know, heard of it before, no one talks about it, so you just automatically assume that it's some kind of cheap Chinese steel and that this is a fake knife, but in fact it is not. It is just an old knife, and it's just an uncommon, you know, not so much used steel. But the performance is still very, very good. It's not like they stopped using it just because, you know, it didn't work. It might have to do with prices. It might have to do with Latrobe. I don't even know if they currently make it, to be honest. That could be very possible. Maybe you haven't seen it in the last, you know, 15, 20 years because they just haven't made it, you know. So if you know that information, certainly post it down in the comments. But anyway, that is all. Just a video on a blade steel. Thank you very much for watching. Hope you guys have an awesome day, and I will see you tomorrow with another video. Take care.